I want to spend a few minutes just reflecting on the way I spent last weekend, because I travelled to Essex. Very, very long way. But there was a special reason for me going there and going initially to Stanford Le Hope, because a very special young lady called Fiona lives in the manse there. She has been in probational ministry, been in ministry as a probationer for the last 2 years, and is now thankfully going forward for ordination at the conference in June. And each candidate that's going forward to that has what we call in the Methodist Church a testimony service, which is a service that they put together. All those that are going forward for ordination, the hymns and the readings are usually all their choice, and the people that take part, they're also the people that they invite. And then a central part of the service is when, in this case, Fiona actually gives her testimony. So part of the service involves the dreaded word, the sermon. I tend not to use that word about myself these days in relation to myself. But Fiona asked if I would preach the sermon at a testimony service. Initially, my reaction was, shouldn't this be the chair of district or your superintendent minister? Who were going to be there? And she said, well, I would like it to be you. And I said I would think and pray about it. It's a peculiar time to have been asked to do that, because for the last few months, I haven't been preaching through choice. I've been going through a rather thoughtful, reflecting time on my ability to preach. I think it's down to a lot of other factors that happen on the circuit and on the churches I'm involved with. I thought I might have lost some confidence in my ability to do it, except I've never been confident. People are always surprised when I say, as a preacher, I feel like an imposter. It took me a very, very long time to answer the call to preach, because I didn't feel I had anything to say, because my natural position, when I was told this at university by one of my professors, my natural position, because of my theology and my views and my influence of liberation theology, my natural position is usually on the margins of the church and working on the margins of a church. But a Methodist minister about 15 years ago said, you're just the person that should be preaching, because there's a message to be got through to the church. So I answered the call. So in recent months, I'm taking a bit of a sabbatical to think exactly what I want to do. And in the middle of this, Fiona contacted me and said, I'd really like you to preach at my testimony service. Now, first of all, I've never been to a testimony service. I know what they're about. At least I've never been to a testimony service for a probationer, for a probationary minister. I've been to testimony services when people are candidating, or when people have been asking questions at a local preacher level. But I've never been to this sort of testimony service before. So I set off on the journey, which was a very long way and a part of a dreaded journey around the M25 before I turned off for South Essex and to stay with Fiona. So last Sunday was quite a day. I went to one of Fiona's churches, Horndon on the Hill, and Fiona was in charge of the service there and was preaching, and usually preaching as she always did in a very engaged and creative way. But we did share, while I was there, the cost of being a preacher. And I was interested to hear Fiona saying how she can find it very tiring to preach. And, you know, she can feel very tired after services. And certainly that's my experience, but I've always partly put that down to age. But I do think there's a certain vulnerability in preaching, and you're putting yourself out there. I've often said that every time you preach, it's like going before the X Factor judges, and there are people in the churches who feel it's their lifelong role, having never preached themselves, to give helpful feedback, shall we say, to the preacher. So in the evening, we went to Fiona's service. Yes, the chair of district was there, Felicity was there, and a pretty full church at Gray's Methodist Church were there. And I preached on the road to Emmaus. It seemed to, although it wasn't the lectionary reading, which people heard about in the morning, certainly from Fiona, but I went with the road to Emmaus and this life of faith that we're all on, this journey of faith, and how Christ is with us whether we know it or not, whether we perceive it or not. He's there on the journey, and we don't always recognise him, and we don't recognise his presence always, but that there are fleeting moments, sometimes, you know, minutes of experience where the presence of the risen Lord is very much with us. And the other point I made in leading up to saying something about my walk with Fiona over the last 9 or 10 years was to say we were never meant to walk this journey of faith alone, that we are meant to live in community, to walk with others. And I quoted, of course, the hymn, "We are pilgrims on a journey, and let me be as Christ to you." And that led me into an incredible 9 years walking with Fiona, first through local preacher training and then supporting her through candidating for ministry. And in the last 18 months, I've been that safe friend that Queen's Foundation suggests every probationer has, where Fiona can share things with me that perhaps she wouldn't share anyone else. So it's a pretty special relationship, really, but we all need people journeying with us. And at the moment, I do feel for myself and for others that there is a lack of encouragement, and I don't think it's intentional, but I do think that church can be quite a brutal place to be. And a lack of encouragement to us and to each other. We're very good at being critical of each other. And the church can be one of the worst places for fallouts, I'm afraid. But no, we need encouragement. We need to know that the risen Christ is with us every step of the way. And funnily enough, when I was preaching, I spoke about my grandmother, my nana, because she was absolutely convinced every single day, whatever she was doing, that Jesus was at the side of her. And I can remember her singing a gospel song that was quite popular in some churches, which was, "He walks with me and he talks with me and he tells me I am his own." I think my experiences have been a little bit more subtle, I think I explained. But I've always been told that it's not how high you jump in these special experiences of Christ, it's how tall you walk after you've experienced those things. So that was last weekend. It was wonderful being with Fiona and her friend Isabella. And after quite a pressurised day last Sunday, we decided it was time to watch a film. So we set ourselves up with chocolate and nibbles and drinks, non-alcoholic, I have to say. And guess what we decided to watch? We watched Conclave, which of course is very current. I'd already seen it once, but it is so beautifully filmed and the acting is majestic. And it does give us an insight into what is about to happen this coming week, which is the election by the cardinals of a new pope. And we shall all be watching for that white smoke to come out of the chimney that has been constructed this weekend, according to the news. So we look forward to that.